when earlier you said you want us to reach for the feeling of the vortex rather than the stuff that we've put in there, or the relationship, or the bodily condition. Is that something?
Well, it's a shorter trip, because if you need to envision the stuff in order to evoke the feeling, in the envisioning the stuff, it could go badly for you.
Right.
But if you have isolated the feeling and you're reaching for the feeling will then engender the thought. In other words, the feeling can drive the thought. Now, technically speaking, the way it works is you think and then you have a feeling response. But if you can linger in the feeling response, then you hold yourself in the vibrational place where law of attraction will now bring you the next thought that matches the thought that engendered the feeling response. Did you get that? We'll say it one more time. When you think a thought, first of all, the feeling, the emotion that you have is response to the thought. But even more, it's response to the two thoughts that are going on. It's the response to the two vibrational vantage points. There is the vantage point of the source within you, and there's the vantage point of you, and your emotion, your feeling, is what those two thoughts accomplish as they blend or don't blend together. So feeling follows the thought. So you think and feel and think and feel and think and feel and think and feel, but before you know it, you're feeling and thinking, feeling and thinking, feeling and thinking, feeling and thinking. You see what we're getting at? So if you deliberately think the best feeling thought that you can find, which causes you to feel, and then you enjoy the feeling, you milk the feeling, you talk about what it feels like to be secure, you talk about what it feels like to know. You milk it, you enjoy the feeling, so you hold yourself in the feeling longer. That means you hold yourself in the vibration longer. Now, law of attraction is responding to the vibration that you've discovered longer, and now it's bringing you more thoughts, more vibrations that match those, and off you go.
So earlier you were asking us to recall a high-flying moment. Would you say that using memory or using present moment experience that we find easy to appreciate, is that the easiest way into the vortex? And then
we really think that if you are now, you're alerted to the idea of it, and so you're watching for a high-flying moment, that when you find one, it would be an easy way to maintain it. Trying to remember one could accomplish the same thing. In other words, whether you're discovering a new one or remembering one you've already lived, you're still focused upon a feeling which will solidify a vibration which will produce more.
Is this now you can do this from outside the vortex or inside the vortex? Well,
here's what we are submitting. Let's say that you're just bipping along and you're not really in the vortex. Let's say you've been visiting with friends, paying your bills, listening to the news somewhat, observing a not very good weather day, and let's say that you're not necessarily in the vortex and not really aware whether you are or not trying to be in. There's nothing that will keep you out of the vortex longer than being aware that you're not in and trying to get in, because it's like noting your failure. It's trying too hard.
So what do you do in that scenario?
So what we are encouraging is that you just sort of give it a rest and make peace with what is, and say things to yourself like, all things in good time, and I'm right on track, and things are working out fine, and things are getting better. In other words, just try to give yourself a break. Even better, meditate or do things. That's why runners are often in the zone. That's why people who spend a lot of time on the road are often in the zone. In other words, do something that sort of takes you away from the details of what might be bothering you. And in doing so, in other words, we really want to emphasize that in the moment that you stop doing that thing you do that holds you out of the vortex will take you in. So meditation stops thought, which stops resistance, and in you go. Listening to music that makes you feel good can take you in other words, there are all kinds of things that you do. We're just encouraging you to watch for them and to do them more often.
So where does the focus wheel come in with that? Because I think what you're saying is get off the subject sometimes, and then other times you're saying focus wheel it. Is that why you recommend doing the focus wheel the next day? Well, you don't necessarily recommend it, but you're saying this is what Esther does. She walks around, she writes down.
Well, think about the sequence of events that we are encouraging. First, basking yourself asleep, then appreciating yourself awake, and then from somewhere near the vicinity of the focus wheel, now addressing things that yesterday felt off from your now place of being closer to the vortex. In other words, it's like waiting until life gives you an easy entry to the vortex, and then milking being in is a much better approach than discovering yourself outside and trying to demand yourself in. It's like the difference between knowing someone, shouting at yourself in the mirror or at a friend, get happy, don't you know you create your own reality, get happy, and just finding a moment where you feel happy, because there are so many moments that feel happy, aren't there? Don't you have a moment or two, a happy moment or two naturally in every day? Do you? Or don't they show up every now and again? And so what we're suggesting is, when one shows up, grab it, identify it, recognize it, describe it, milk it, maintain it, practice the vibration of it, and then more like it will show themselves to you immediately. So
then it's accurate to say, don't try and do a focus wheel from outside the vortex to get in.
Well, what we've noticed, you know, as we speak what we know, and then we visit with you who are making your effort to then know what we know, we notice that almost every time we offer a process, you try so hard you counteract the effect of the process. So in the beginning we said, when you want it and believe it, it is. But it's one thing to want to believe it, and it's another thing to believe it. And wanting to believe it when you don't believe it can reach the point of being counterproductive. So sometimes it's better just to leave the desire there, non-contested, and in your non-contesting of it, the universe will show you a reason to believe it. The best common or chronic emotion that we would encourage that you hang around in is one of hope. Because if you can hang around in a hopeful or somewhat optimistic vibration, you're close enough to the vortex that it will just suck you in and show you what you want to see, and suck you in and show you what you want to see, until it will make a believer out of you. And when you believe, then you've got it made. When you believe. In other words, have you ever had the experience where you had a viable way that you felt secure in of making money, and because you believed it, the money came, and because the money came, you believed it, and because you believed it, the money came, and because the money came, you believed it. So you just had a sort of cycle that you could not lose going on.
Could you define what hope is? Is hope just saying I want this, and I think I might be able to get it because I see other people have it? Or what?
Well, that your pinning us down in this way is really pointing out what we're reaching for in this discussion. We would like hope to be a less analytical, thoughtful process and more of an emotional sensation. Don't you really know the difference between hope and doubt? The difference in how it feels. Hope feels free, lifting. Doubt feels heavy, and icky, doubt feels empty, hope feels fuller. In other words, we want you to begin to define these feelings. Haven't you had the experience of feeling pretty good and then have someone walk into your life and deliver negative commentary about something, and at first you feel a sort of aversion to it, and then out of politeness you settle into it, and then as you listen a little longer you feel a less good, and the longer you listen the less good you feel, and before you know it they've hooked you and now you're contributing. But you can just feel yourself emptying out. You can just feel yourself emptying out. You can feel the life being sucked right out of you with this conversation. You can feel it happening, you see, and that's what we're talking about. You're feeling your emotions or your guidance letting you then understand your vibrational content. So we can talk all day about the vibrational content of thought, but the thing that's so interesting is that the vibrational content of thought in and of itself is meaningless. You could take all of the facts in the world and stack them up against other stacks. They are meaningless except as how they apply to the thought that the source within you thinks. In other words, everything is relative. The subject of relativity is really what we're talking about. If you haven't expanded over here, then a contradictory thought won't make you feel uncomfortable. But if you have expanded over here, then a contradictory thought will make you feel uncomfortable. And an aligned thought will fill you with life, you see. So rather than talking about the rightness or the wrongness of thoughts or words or actions or concepts, we just want to talk about you as expanding beings and how far you've expanded, and we want you to follow your gut, follow your bliss into alignment with who you are, you see.